Well, I'll just come here to supervise and drink coffee and eat cake and all that, but in between all of that, we'll probably have to rebuild the diff with some new diff gears.
So for you guys who follow BBG on Facebook, I put the question out, which diff gear should I get? At the time I put the question out, I already had these gears, but I was doing some procrastinating and double, triple, quadruple thinking my decisions. But we've gone with a brand new set of Dana Spicer M78 gears, so ring gear, pinion gear. These are 373s, so you've been in 373s, how do they feel?
Pretty good. Yeah, that was behind an auto, so you had the torque converter and all that, but should be a big difference from the 308, and you should feel it straight away.
Already got the axles popped out. We've taken the panhard bar off, about to drop the sway bar down. We have to take the rear section of exhaust off. I've done all that in another video a while back, doing the rear wheel bearings on one of these, so if you want to know how to pull the axles and everything out, go check out that video. I won't waste time in this video stuffing around with that. We'll get to the nitty gritty on how to do a diff properly with Sir Ben, who is the engineer and the bearing expert here. So he's going to run us through everything we need to do. Alright, so you're probably wondering, well actually, there's probably a few questions. Firstly, the one I'm asking myself is why didn't I do this sooner? And that's because to do it properly, it's quite an involved task. And in the past I've had a diff place do this, but I just don't have the time. And you know what, I want to learn, and Ben also knows a lot about this, so he's going to kindly give me his time today and teach me, and you guys as well. I definitely wouldn't advise undertaking this if you're not pretty mechanically minded and have a good array of tools and everything to set this up properly. Secondly, I guess the reason why I'm doing this now, like we're coming up to Chrissy, it's probably not the best time, but as a lot of you know, I've got a new G-Force built T5 box in it, and the ratios are basically the same as the Aussie 5-speed T5, which is running like a 295 first gear as opposed to a 3.25 first in the V6 box. But yeah, it's actually the Mustang ratio, but it's what the VS V8 ran basically, and the V8 I'm guessing too. So because this carries tools, the car fully loaded probably weighs close to 2 tons, I'd say almost. So it's really been burning the clutch trying to get this thing going on a hill start. So the 3.7 should hopefully bring that back up to a decent, in a nutshell, we'll get about 17.5% lower ratio. I'm hoping it's enough, otherwise we're gonna have to go 3.9s, and if 3.9s aren't enough, 4.11s, I don't know, but that kind of just makes another. I think I found the happy medium. What do you reckon, Ben?
No, I reckon it's worth a shot.
Yeah, definitely. It's a good starting point anyway, so.
This could be the practice run.
Yeah, well, you know what? It's some hard evidence for you guys, so. Anyway, stay tuned. Hopefully, it'll be kind of hard to get, we'll get as best footage as we can. You know, obviously it's dark in tight places, and yeah, we'll give you guys the best instructional we can. Sounds like a box party I went to once. What was that?
Sounds like a box party I went to.
Alright, ladies and gents, we've got the cover off. So, just some initial inspection. All looks good. Yes, you've got one of those to go on, don't you, buddy?
I do, waiting.
Yes,
just
so
free time if that ever
be
happens.
Sure to subscribe to Ben's channel, where he'll be doing some pretty extensive diff things to a Prado.
Yep, that's underway at the moment.
L67.
Airlock is going to the Prado, True Track's going into the Calais.
It's all happening.
It's all
and what is
happening.
it? It's a VT?
It's a VT, it's an M80, so an 8-inch gear. So it's going from a VT. Couple of mods to it because of the tail shaft connection and all that, and then it's going into my VS.
So, check it out. Bengineered.
Bengineered. When I stop building other people's diffs.
I'll build you a barbecue shelter, alright?
Sweet. Then we got Q&A there.
Alright, so what is the plan of attack, Ben?
Okay, so what we'll do is have a good look at it. Make sure there's nothing sus going on in there. And it looks like they've already marked the bearing cap, so you want to make sure that the bearing cap from this side stays on this side and the one from this side stays on that side, because what they do is they build the diff, they clamp it down, torque it, and then they line bore the center. So this cap is unique to this side.
I see.
So you're going to make sure that this stays with this side and that one stays with that. Normally what they do is they put a center punch mark. So you can see someone's put a center punch mark there.
Yep.
So the gears on the diff are pretty good. There's no real contamination or indentation. They're in really good condition.
Yeah, it does look really nice.
And you can see the oil that's in there is pretty clean. But the oil as it was running out had some metal particles in it.
Well, from what I found, that every diff I've drained has had that.
Yeah, and you probably will get that, just like particles that wear off here and that sort of thing. So we need to get the pinion out, and the pinion will come out this way through the opening. So we'll do the nut and so on and get that out. Get the bearings out and so on. So then we'll set up the new gears on the diff center, press the bearings on and all that, put it all back in the housing, check the preloads of the pinion. Then we'll set up the diff center, make sure we get the right backlash and so on.
Yep. Alrighty. And another thing to mention quickly, if you can get your hands on a genuine GMH manual, definitely bring that along. As you can see, we've taken some photocopies so we're not dirtying the real one. So this should have all the answers we need. Well, it does have all the answers we need. We've just got to make it happen. Alright. Do it, Benny.
There we go.
Oh, thankfully we didn't need that spreader.
Try to catch the bearings as they come out.
So what are we looking at?
We're just checking out the cup from one of the sides. So we wiped all the oil off it, and you can see in the raceway there, so from there to there is the normal running mark from there to there. So that's the normal width that you'd expect to see. As we go around, you can see there's some dirt in the oil. You can see that all that indentations in there. So there's particles floating around, and it looks like it might not have been sitting perfectly inside the carriers, because the running mark goes from being wide there to narrow over there. But yeah, you can see there's a bit of dirt floating around inside the oil, so clean it up as best you can. But it's not too bad, hasn't done much work at all. So check this out. It's the sparkles. And this is the bearing carrier, so I've taken that off and you can see there all the metal particles. Yeah. So if you've ever had a diff failure, this is what happens. The hard material goes all through your diff and everything else, and gets caught up in the oil and circulates around, and that's how you get that hard particle indentation in the bearings. So in many cases it's still going to last as long as you want it to last, but it's not going to last as long as it could last if it was perfectly clean. Yeah. So if you do have a diff failure, it pays to get it as clean as you possibly can. When I had the diff failure in the Prado, I'd pull the whole axle out and flush the whole thing through, because I don't ever want to go back into there again and do the job again. So, but in this case, you know, like, you had the diff failure, you can see evidence of contamination damage, but the diff is still working perfectly fine, and will continue to. So,
well, that's good to hear.
You just want to do your due diligence and clean out as best you can, particularly with a Harrop gear, True Track diff, or any sort of Torsen diff, because there's all gears inside there.
That's right, so
any contamination that gets in there is just going to wear out all the components quicker and quicker. So, what happened now?
Don't judge me. Alright, so when it comes to taking these bolts off, they are left-hand thread, so
it's not a pointless L on the top there.
Yes. Hopefully you can actually see it.
It's like there's one bolt on the Ecotech that's left-hand thread on the idler pulleys, and so many people strip the aluminium out of them because just reefing on it with a breaker bar.
Alright guys, so you're probably wondering why we're not in the workshop. Yes, we are going to get lunch, but after taking a detour to Ben's house, we are going to go get a different size pinion nut, because the one in the diff that I've got, the M78, is a size was it?
17 mil.
17 mil, and we need 22?
I think it's 23.
22 or 23 mil. So Ben's got one of those on one of his diffs at home, so we're going to go pinch that. Thank you very much, Ben. And hopefully, well, it will fit because there's only two.
Yeah.
So that's one thing to be sure of. The eBay store that I bought it from, there was actually a review by one of the customers who bought it saying that it's all good except it needed a different nut. So I mentioned that to Ben. Ben measured his nut, I measured my nut. Together we had two nuts measured.
We compared nuts.
And
turns out I had bigger nuts.
It does. I don't know what that says, but
just thinking about that, maybe what they meant was on their gears for M76, 78 and 80, they use the same nut across all of their aftermarket gears. But the factory won't use a smaller nut.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because what I was looking at was a factory.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Alright, so we're scrounging through the rubbish pile.
Rubbish? This isn't rubbish. This is like, you know, that could be a turbo manifold. Just look at the potential. Alright, they're junk. But
Yeah, what are those?
That's Allotech front cover plates and an Allotech manifold.
Ah, okay.
VR disc brakes.
Is that from when you had a turbo Allotech?
Yeah, and the engines that sacrificed themselves for R&D. But more importantly, what we have here is a VT style 307 diff, and
so this is an M80?
it's M78.
M78, okay. But the IRS version of mine.
Yeah, so this is a VT M78 IRS diff. It's from the VT Series 1, you can tell by the coupling here. It doesn't have the rubber triangle, so this is the early style flange. And what we found is that it's actually like your one, 17-18 mil thread. And the other thing we thought about on the way through is you need this coupling, but what's the outside diameter on the nut flange? So we forgot to bring it, and estimating that is roughly 35 millimeters on the outside, and you can't really go much bigger than that. So we'll have to check the nut on the other diff, on the M80, and make sure that it's not on the
Alright, let's go thieve some parts. Alright, so this is the M80 that you're building.
Will build.
So
we have 22 mil thread. Luckily, the outside of the nut
looks
is about
right.
35, so it's about the same.
Easy enough to turn down by looks. There's a bit of meat left on it.
Yep.
So that's the triangle Ben was talking about.
Yeah, and then you have a rubber coupling that goes on here, and on the drive shaft is an opposing triangle that goes there for a bit of damping.
Alright. How easy is it going to come off?
Really good.
Ooh. Not literally, Ben.
One nut.
Thank you, sir.
Just like I bought one.
Alright, so we've got the supplies, the most important supplies. Woo. Some celebratory Peronis when we're done. Alright.
Some colas to get us through.
Okay, what a hold up. Alright, we're back at it. We've got the big boys tools.
Right.
So what size did we find was the best for these?
You calling me fat? Big
No,
boys tools?
We're grown up, that's what I mean.
So the bolts that hold the crown wheel to the diff center are 5/8, which is really close to 16. But because we're using an impact tool, we want to make sure we're using the right socket, and it's also the proper impact rated socket.
And it's left-hand thread, remember?
Left-hand thread, so we want righty-loosey this time.
Yes.
So
ignore your instinct. That is a really good rattle gun.
So we're going to undo it in a cross pattern just to make sure we don't warp the flange or anything like that.
And then ta-da!
So there's the diff center. Let's take that out for a minute.
So now we test fit.
Trial fit time.
Look like it's going to go.
Well, it'll go, but it's pretty tight.
Might have to chuck it in the oven, mate. So do you want to explain to the guys what you were just telling me before, Ben?
Which one's that?
The lighting surface?
Yeah. So when we cleaned it up, we wanted to check to make sure that this surface here is nice and clean. So if you don't have enough clamp load on these fasteners to the ring gear, what you can get is threading corrosion on this flange face, between the flange face and the gear face here. And that shows up as like a blackish sort of stain or a reddish sort of stain, depending on how much oxygen there is present. So you could see before the bolts were really tight getting them off, and there's no threading corrosion at all between the ring gear and the diff center flange. So it was all done up to the right torque. There was no movement or anything like that. So everything's good, and the diff's still in really good condition. So
that's what I want to hear.
Just check the bits as we go.
Right, so Ben thought well and truly ahead, and he's brought a cook plate.
Heating plate, industrial heating plate. So these heating plates are good.
Oh, so you don't cook your sausages and stuff on that?
Well, we
you actually do work stuff with
Yeah.
it? Oh, okay.
But we could do it. We could have dinner, so you can have like a little lid in there. Anyway, it's an industrial heating plate, so you can heat components on there and bring them up to temperature to get them to grow, so that they'll slide easily over spigots and so on. So to get the gear on, we're going to bring the gear.
Is that already at temp?
Yeah.
Shit.
So. Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
So we'll go for 120 odd degrees, heat the gear up, get it nice and hot, and then we'll set the pinion up ready to drop it down, and we'll have to prepare ourselves. So we've got some gloves so we can handle that easily, so we'll leave that
to simmer,
slow cook. And we've got our flange puller sockets ready for action. Just slide that over, and oh shit.
Alright,
well,
scratch that idea then.
Sometimes it's easier to pull than others. Well, there's the flange, and that's where the drive shaft mates to on that side. The spline goes to the input pinion, and then that's the surface there that the input pinion shaft seal runs against. So this one's in pretty good condition. It's just got a light groove in it, but nothing too bad. So we can clean all that up and reuse that.
Awesome.
There's the input pinion. So there's the pinion.
So this is the crush.
So there's the crush spacer, which sets your preload or your clearance. And what people tend to do is they just add another shim in there and then re-crush the spacer to adjust the right preloads. So what you can actually see though is that there's some wear in the spline from your drives. It's not too bad, but you can see the shiny parts there where it's been engaging. Yeah. And this part here is the bearing seat for the other type of bearing.
Alright, so some more fun facts.
So we're going to do some measuring, because one of the things we noticed is the cone of the taper roller just slid straight on and off that bearing seat on the old pinion. So normally that's not the case. It should be like a pretty firm fit, not a really tight fit, but because you have to adjust it, but firm enough that it has some resistance. You can see on the new one, it's not going to slide on easily on there. There's going to be some resistance, but on the old one, slides in on and off. So we're going to check what the difference is between this journal and this journal. So first thing we do is we get a pair of micrometers, and the micrometers will come with a test piece. So the test piece is 25 millimeters. Let me put that in.
So this can be done for those of you at home who don't have micrometers or feel like spending hundreds of dollars, even thousands of dollars on a micrometer. You could do it with your verniers, as long as they've got enough resolution and you know how to use them, and they read accurately. We just check the calibration, so we use a thumb wheel, because that gives us a consistent feel from time to time. So if you're not used to using this equipment all the time, definitely use a thumb wheel. We put the 25 millimeter piece in, and we use a thumb wheel, and you see that it's measured exactly 25 millimeters, and the zero lines up with the indicator line right there. So that's 25 mils. So back it off, and we come up, and about 3 clicks on there, it should zero itself out. So we know that this is calibrated and 0 to 25 mil. Let's measure the first one. So you hold them on this pad here, and it stops
the heat from your hands transferring through to the body and changing the
Dead
gap.
set?
Yeah, that's
Wow.
an insulated pad. It's not going to help too much here because your body temp is like 30 something,
Yeah.
and it's about 30 degrees in here. All we want to do is just make sure these are right and what the differences are between the new and the old. So we sneak up on the dimension, 3 clicks, and we just give it a wiggle to make sure we're on the high part of the diameter. So in this case we're just taking a reference measurement, so we're going to do it in the middle of the bearing seat. So that's 30.1516.165. It's halfway between the two marks there.
Yep.
And then what you can do is check it 90 degrees to where it was before to make sure that it is cylindrical. So then we'll come over to the new one and do the exact same thing. Sneak up on the dimension, and that is 30.1516.175. So it's approximately 0.02 larger. So 30.175, and before we measured 30.16. It is bigger, and that's a much better fit for the bearing.
Yep. So will we have to press that on with the press, or are we going to heat it up and hope that it drops on, or both?
So what we'll do is we'll heat up the inboard bearing, which is the bearing that sits here on the heating plate, and that will just drop right down.
Yep.
Get that seated and back to temperature, and then we'll slide the whole assembly in. We can heat up the bearing to make it easier, pull it all up together, and then from there adjust the bearing preload.
Yep.
So one thing you want to do if you're heating components and putting them on is when you heat the component, let's say it's this bearing here, you heat it up and you slide it on, you need to retain it against the abutment face until it cools down, because what happens is it shrinks as it cools down and it can pull away from that face.
Yep.
So it's going to come together towards the center line, and you can come away from the back face. So an easy way to do that is once you slide it on is you just get a tube and just tap it to make sure that it's seated against there, and you'll hear that.
Yep.
And if you're not sure, and the fit, the interference fit is very, very tight, what you can do is
You just weld it?
yeah, exactly. And then it'll never move. Or you can take a very thin feeler blade and check between this face and the big face of the bearing to make sure that it's seated against this face.
Yep.
Right.
Hope you guys enjoyed that bit of tech
There's the
wizardry.
tech tip for today. Yeah.
Is that it?
Yep.
You're kidding.
I'm going to jiggle it. It's going to cool down pretty quick, so you want to get it seated. Yeah.
Doesn't feel right tightening them backwards.
Yeah. Careful with this, it's hot. Really hot. So when it's hot like that, it's expanded, so you can make sure it's nicely centered.
That's actually really impressive how much it grew.
Yeah. Do you know what the thing is for steel? It's 0.11 for every 10 degrees for every meter, and you can scale it.
Yeah.
So if you heat half a meter length, 10 degrees, it'll grow by 0.05.
Yeah, so before we did this, we obviously cleaned up all the threads of these bolts on the wire wheel on the bench grinder. Alright, so we're going to torque them to half the overall spec, 70 Newton meters.
You've got a problem here.
What?
You have a deflection beam torque wrench, which only works in tightening.
Oh. So should we work on the ancient method of ugga-duggas?
I prefer not to.
Yeah.